Hey and welcome to this training video. We're working on Tekla Structures 2021, Service Pack 6. In this video we're going to handle the IFC file and the conversion of an IFC file using Tekla Structures. Now the IFC file is basically a website file that you can use for viewing purposes and analysis. Tekla Structures has the function to import or insert this reference file, and you can then, even on the newer Tekla, explode it and convert it into items that you can be used on your Tekla structures. So in this video we're going to handle how to insert this and even create your own IFC file and how to open it using Trimble Connect. Or you can even use a different BIM site. If you're familiar with a different BIM site or comfortable with a different BIM site, you can use it, but I prefer to use my Trimble Connect, also a Trimble Structures product. Alright, so now let's insert the first IFC file. I've placed an IFC file on my desktop, so for practice purposes. So I'm going to choose firstly the reference models. Once you've chosen this, you can actually go ahead and say add model. Once you've chosen add model, you can browse and you can choose IFC file. As you can see on desktop, this is my IFC file, and you can say add model. So once you've added the model, you'll see that this is what currently shows. Now, what can happen is you can now take off certain information. You can trace over this file to your client specifications and get exactly the same result as that they provided to you to give you the most accurate type of modeling. So you can now actually trace over this part. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add quickly for instance, a few beams or CFL secrets, just quickly add those. So let's start off by just going ahead and choosing this. All right, so it's a 75, 125, 20, and let's see the thickness of it is 2. So let's go for steel. We can now open up our steel, choose this item, and we're going to go to the CFLCs. So let's choose the CFLC function or CC. There you go, CFLC drop down, and now we can look for the 125. Let's see, 125 by 75 by 20 by 2.0. There we go, and we can now add it from center point. Now, the problem that you might face now is that yours, we just have to move this to the middle as well. The problem that you might have is you cannot really see what the slope is, for instance. Now you can either measure it, or you can do just as quickly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to choose from this point to this point, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to set my work plane to this item, and if I click on this item, I can then just say this should be 0, the rotation, and it has a perfect fit. Right, so what I'm going to do is now I can actually just turn off my reference selection at the bottom. I can choose my beam, and I'm saying pop this over each part. There we go. Right, so there we go. We have now, I'm just going to turn it back on. Right, so there we go. Now we have all of this. Now, the function that I brought in is if you double click on it, it has layers, and you can now turn off certain layers. Now, for instance, it has grid lines on. So I'm going to turn off all the grid lines. And floor level. So now there's no excessive lines anymore, as you can see. You can even turn off plates. So now you can see that facets is removed. If I choose purlins, the purlins will now be removed. And same for the rafters. If I choose the rafter to be, it will now hide, or the rafter brace, sorry. And this is the rafters, it will hide the rafters. So you can actually hide certain things using your layers. Right, so there we go. We have now, so this is how you're going to work on your different ways of doing your IFC file. Now, the other function that Tekla brought into this is the conversion of an IFC file part. So let's do that just quickly. So you're going to go to your Start IFC Object Conversion Change Management. Once you've chosen this, a new title block up, toolbar. So now, if you select one, will highlight what item this is. Now we don't want to, for instance, convert the beams or the items marked 0, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my conversion part, this one. And we're going to go down to, for instance, all the angles now. I'm just going to convert these quickly. So what you're going to do is you can choose all your angles, click on the drop down and say conversion as item. Now it's going to process the data. So this might take a little time depending on how big your structure is. So let's see, there it is. We can now say apply the changes. There we go. Right, so let's see what happened. Let's close this part, and now let's see, if we delete this part, we can even, again, if you delete the entire thing, here we go. So what it did is it actually created, you can say this, an item completely separate. You can see there it is, and it's marked as a complete. So we literally just did the angles. Now again, if you double click on your IFC file, you can now literally go ahead and say, for instance, manage, and you can use the main items. Remember, we only did the angles of the short, those angle parts right there. So we want everything now. So I'm going to choose this and say conversion as an item. So now it's going to process the data again. And as soon as you press apply changes, it will have exploded IFC file. So now you can even turn off your IFC file. Now, the problem with this is you'll have to make sure it won't take as long as redrawing everything from scratch, but you have to do your numbering over. So now we're going to say apply the changes. Here we go. So we are now done this. So if I choose my IFC file, may delete it. So it's going to ask me delete. I'm going to delete anyway. And we can even delete this part right here. You'll see that it actually converted it steel. So if I double click on this item, you just need to change the materials. So I'm going to highlight everything. What we're going to, oh, sorry about that. I'm just going to highlight everything. Or rather, let's do this and choose parts. Let's highlight every part. Okay, doesn't want to do that. Right, so let's see, it picks something else up. Right, so what you have to do now is you have to say that should be S355JR and say modify. So now it will automatically change these items. So again, use this part, use the steel S355JR or whatever steel grade you want to use. And we're going to say modify. So now you delete this part. Here we go. So now we have now the name. You can change the shape. You can even see the shape. Now the shape, what it does is you no longer work with profile. So what happens is if you choose, for instance, let's just undo and again, choose now, it will give you ungrouped Perlin 1. So no longer, if you create drawings, the problem will be that it will state that it's Perlin 1 and not the CFLC. So this is the only problem that still needs to be sorted out. You can change your numbering settings and even the class to, for instance, blue. You can modify it, and there we go. So you can convert it. You can even go ahead and create your own particular files from it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete everything. So this is how you're going to convert your IFC file or import an IFC file which from you can trace. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just add these CFLCs, right? And this is how you're going to do it. You have different options. You can either choose select, which means everything that you select is what's going to be exported, or you can export everything depending on what your client or wants. I'm going to choose IFC file right now. And to pop up, you can say select all files. Now, if you go to advanced, you can say you want assemblies and welds. The function of this is to show you, I'm going to show you as soon as you say export. Let's make sure everything was selected, export completed. So if I open my model folder, it's going to open up my IFC file. So if I open up the IFC file itself, Trimble Connect will open. It opened on my left side of my left screen. So I'm going to open up, maximize the window, and there we go. So now the function of an IFC file is if you double click on the profile itself, you can double click on your profile item and it will give you every information you will need for this. Length of it, everything. So if we look at it, the current, let's go down a bit. Let's start off with weight, 0.0281. The square footage, the height, the width, length is 6 meters, 75 in width. That's what we have. And what is the profile size, along with what is its name. It should be billion or whatever you use it for. And this is what the BIM site can do. Now, BIM site, you can get all the information you require from the model that was exported to an IFC file. So you can open it up on different platforms as well. So this is how you're going to insert a reference model, export an IFC file, and even convert an IFC file into steel profiles.